pretty awesome being funded by a a brewery family foundation. Can't say that all the time. Even better, as Lucy said, that we are in a brewery today. So my name is Eric Kornaki. I'm the co-founder and executive director of a nonprofit based in Denver called Revision. And Revision was really an attempt to trying to kind of reflect on some of what I'm hearing today and use that as a way. But it's really an idea of how do we build a neighborhood economy, investing in the people and in that place, and find ways that we can activate the existing assets and resources of a given community to solve their own problems. And that's really kind of counterintuitive to the way I think philanthropy, the way community development happens. And so Revision is really trying to bring a new model for how we go about doing that into the world. So I live and work in a neighborhood in Southwest Denver called Westwood. Westwood is really the heart of the Latino community in Denver, 84% Hispanic, about 40% are Spanish first speakers. And Westwood is a historically redlined community. And so does everybody here know what that term means, redlined? No, okay. So redline would literally be when banks and elected officials would draw on a map with a red marker around a neighborhood and said, we're not investing in this community. And so it was a practice of historical and systemic racism to isolate communities of color from receiving investments. And so Westwood historically has been a working class neighborhood of immigrants. It's rolled over, who the immigrant community serving on the bottom has been. But in this day and age, it is the Hispanic community. And so a lot of the people in this community don't have the same investment, the same rights, the same avenues and pathways for opportunity that other communities have, and therefore has really seen some of the worst health and economic disparities. This picture, it's a real picture from a little bit about throughout my presentation, but I think it encapsulates so much of what our community has sort of become. A blighted community, barbed wired, empty shopping carts. This is a food desert neighborhood. It's a community that really suffered on the tail end of divestment for over 40 years. This was the last grocery store in our neighborhood. It shut down late 1990s, sat vacant for 15 years. It was recently by the city bulldozed after several pretty violent crimes had taken place there. Had been an eyesore and a problem spot from the neighborhood. The city and the community are now working to build a futsal court and turn that into a community asset. But this was the last serving grocery store in the neighborhood. We also live in the youngest neighborhood in all of Denver. Largest percentage of the population under the age of 18. We also have the lowest life expectancy. It's 12 years fewer than any other Denver neighborhood. And so for a family in this neighborhood, the average household size is about 5 people. Family purchases, annual expenditures of groceries, is $3,500 a year. So if you kind of round up and do the math, it comes out to less than $2 a person a day on groceries. Our children suffer from the highest rates of obesity and diet-related illness in the city. And so this is a pretty complex issue. There's no one sort of silver bullet or one approach that is going to solve it. But Revision came in, began listening to the community and saying, what do you want to do about this? Like, why? What are the barriers from preventing you from living the most healthy, productive life and being involved in the solution? And no one had ever been invited to be part of the solution before. And so just by having conversations with the community, we found that there was such a wealth of assets that could be deployed. They just weren't being activated to solve this problem. And so we talked with mothers that were concerned about their kids' future and said, what do you need to do something about this? What do you want to do? And what we found is that most of the community has a connection to food and agriculture that is such a beautiful gift and a wealth of knowledge and resources that wasn't being utilized in this particular community. So where they came from, maybe they grew a lot of the food that they had, they shared with each other, nobody was hungry, they ate healthy, and then they moved here. And they're living in this concrete jungle where they don't know where they can grow food. They don't know their neighbors. They live in isolation. They don't have access to the traditional foods that they have depended upon. And so they're suffering because of it. So we said, what would it take for you to take that knowledge and put it into place in your neighborhood? And they were really, really simple barriers, such as I don't speak English, I don't know how to talk to my landlord, or I'm from Mexico and there's no way you can grow food in Colorado. So we began hiring them. We said, we're going to give you a good paying job. We're going to help you connect to your neighbors, and you're going to teach them. So we now have over 10 community members that are almost full-time. We call them our promotoras, so it's a model of health promotion. They teach their neighbors how to grow food, everything from how to plan your garden to what to plant, what to harvest, how to cook with it, how to preserve the harvest into the season. Some families, such as David here, his family produces 70% of what they eat off of their front yard garden. It's over 2,000 square feet. They share the surplus. It's an amazing thing. So I'm going to flip through a couple of time progressions just so you can see where it started. So 2009, when we began having those conversations, it started with 7 families. And then just because the promoters live and work in the community and know the networks, this was them being at the face of the solution. And so this became a word of mouth effort. And by 2014, we had 400 families participating in this. This is all word of mouth. This is all grassroots. It's all organically grown, quite literally. And as I mentioned, as the neighborhood, as this was growing, people realized that there's a surplus, and like we're asking questions of, can we sell food? How do I go about doing that? And so through community organizing and listening campaigns, we found that there was a lot of people that wanted to sell extra food. There's also the broader context of we still need a grocery store in the community. And wanting to come up with a solution ourselves as opposed to trying to bring in an outside store, we said, let's start it. So the community came together. They formed a for-profit cooperative called the Westwood Food Cooperative. Revision is an incubator of that. We approached our city Office of Economic Development, convinced them of the wide-scale buy-in to this program. City said, yes, we'll help you find a property to develop this store. So we purchased a 1.7 acre junkyard that was a blighted property in the neighborhood, began using community volunteer efforts to tear it down. We hauled off over 500,000 tons of trash and debris, stripping old buildings down, recycling them. And currently, we are building what we call Rise Westwood, which is a hub for a community-owned, resilient, inclusive, and sustainable economy to celebrate the cultural diversity of the neighborhood and create a place where people can come, gather, access healthy food, workforce training. This is a current sort of schematic for the site plan. It includes 35 affordable housing units, a 16,000 square foot for-profit greenhouse that will be run by community members, a 14,000 square foot grocery store, that's going to be the future Westwood Food Cooperative, as well as a community-run fitness center and a youth workforce training program. So just going to kind of leave on this quote from our mayor because I think it really touches this point of what we're trying to build. We're trying to change the system by creating community ownership. And he says it so well by saying that this is a business that exists to serve the specific needs of a community and therefore can never be uprooted and outsourced somewhere else. And I think in today's day and age where we see there's so much talk about outsourcing and trade and this and that, this idea of place-based and locally owned businesses is so important, particularly when people that have been left out of the conversation, that don't have access to capital, that have never been risen to a managerial level, can come together and create that for themselves. This is a truly transformative approach. So with that, I'm out of time, and thank you.